bewildered. If it had been Minna, the impulsive, adventurous one, they wouldn't have been the least bit surprised. "I'll have a glass of red wine." "Excellent choice. Would you like to take a seat and I'll bring it to you?" Even more indulgent, being waited on. Hannah nodded and turned to survey the room, which was empty apart from a family party over by the window. They were spread out around a long table full of empty glasses and plates, and recently replenished pints and bottles of wine. Their lively chatter and laughter punctuated the calm atmosphere of the room, enveloping it with an aura of homeliness. With a smile, she headed towards the large open fireplace and one of a pair of winged-back chairs that looked as if they might have been plucked from Sherlock Holmes's study. As soon as she sank into the plump velvet cushions, nestling back into the chair, she propped her feet up on the little footstool so she could warm them. By the time the barman arrived with her glass, her feet were lovely and toasty, and she kicked off her shoes to curl up in the generously sized chair with her warm toes under her bottom. It reminded her of being a little girl again when she could duck down into the sofa with a book and no one would know she was there. "Thank you." "Enjoy. You got the best spot in the house here." She took a sip of the rich ruby wine and sighed with pleasure. This was heaven, and she had just the thing to round off the experience perfectly. Her Kindle. A book, a glass of wine, a fire, and nothing else to do. What was not to like? It was the first time in she didn't know how long that she'd not been working and striving towards the next thing. GCSEs, A-levels, law degree, articles, and more recently meeting endless deadlines. Not that she was to be pitied. She loved her job. She was well paid and she was good at it. When she added it all up, taking this sabbatical was probably the craziest thing she'd ever done in her life, and she still wasn't sure quite what had driven it. Not a midlife crisis, a love affair gone wrong, chance would be a fine thing, or a temporary loss of sanity, all things that had been suggested to her in varying degrees of exasperation by her boss and colleagues. What had triggered her decision to give up work and come and do a residential course at one of the top cookery schools in Ireland was the most ridiculously minor event, but it had brought home the secret embarrassment that, even though she was nearing 30, she still couldn't cook. Her sister was an absolute whiz in the kitchen, and she'd accepted that she'd missed out on the cookery genes, but in recent years it had become a secret source of shame. Since reading about the Killorgally Cookery School in the Sunday Times magazine supplement, when she'd had a bout of flu, it had become a mild obsession, especially when she realised it wasn't that far from her best friends Aidan and Sorcha Fitzpatrick, whom she'd been promising to visit ever since they'd left Manchester to go back to Ireland. Surely it was meant to be. Going to cookery school and taking time out from her job was completely out of character, but their proximity was a definite bonus. Part of her wondered if she'd avoided cooking because it was Minna's thing, and she'd always tried to compensate for Minna's more impulsive personality by being the opposite to her sister, the one who kept the family on an even keel and reassured their adopted parents that they weren't going to end up like their real parents. Well, it was too late now to worry about whether she'd done the right thing. Tomorrow she'd be picking up a hire car and driving to County Kerry on the other side of Ireland to start the 6-week course. And now she was set on this strange new path, she ought to just kick back and enjoy herself. With that, she took another good glug of wine and settled into the chair to read. The wine was so good that when the charming waiter came by to offer another glass, of course he was charming, he was trying to sell her wine, she accepted without a second thought. In the warmth of the fire, nestled into the comfortable chair, she felt delightfully cosy and was starting to have trouble keeping her eyes open. The lively family party were taking their rather lengthy and quite emotional leave, and as their voices died away, she set her Kindle down on her lap and closed her eyes. She was having the most delicious dream when something disturbed her. The quiet clip of glass on wood. Opening her eyes, she blinked her way up to the surface and found herself looking into the most gorgeous set of intense blue eyes. Without thinking, and feeling ever so relaxed thanks to her surroundings, she gave their owner her most dazzling smile. "Hello." Her voice came out in some sort of sultry purr that was about as far removed from her usual vocal range as humanly possible.